Hi, I'm Rita. Welcome back to my booktube channel, Life Worth Reading. Today I'm filming my August wrap-up. Now, August was not a good reading month for me. I ended up reading 6 books, but most of them were 3 stars or less. So yeah, not the best reading month I've ever had. It was actually quite bad. But to counteract that fact, I have started September with a 5-star read. So here's to hoping that that dictates the rest of my reading month and I don't have an August part 2, because that would really suck. It was an awful reading month. But without further ado, let's just get into it. To decide which book I'm going to be talking about first, I am going to pick from my little tin of bookish prompts. If you haven't seen my latest wrap-ups, when I do them, I try to pick some bookish prompts and superlatives so it can be a little bit more interesting and fun. I'm still playing around with the format. It's not fixed yet, but I figured that I would pick one prompt and assign that to one book, and that would be the first book that I talk about so we can kickstart this wrap-up. In case you hear some noises, I also have some like paper clips in here, so that's what mostly is making the noises, but let's shake and pick one prompt. Okay, and I'll be picking one of them, and let's figure out what that prompt is. It says, most unforgettable, you can't read that. Most unforgettable reading experience. Okay, I have to think about that. Most unforgettable reading experience. Okay, I think I know which one I want to talk about, and it's gonna be a first book that was quite disappointing because it was a release that I was very much anticipating, and I know a lot of people are also anticipating, and I don't bring the best news in terms of the rating, and that is Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. I have never read an Alice Feeney before. This is my first book by this author, and it will not be my last because I enjoyed the writing, I enjoyed the setting of it, but yeah, unfortunately I only gave it 3 stars. It was quite disappointing, and only because of one thing, and that was the ending. Listen, maybe some people will eat this ending up, not me. I was not fed with this reveal. It was not a good reveal in my humble opinion. Daisy Darker, let's start there. It's like a murder mystery. It's a classic 1-by-1 trope, Agatha Christie inspired, and it's about a character, Daisy Darker, and her family, which includes her 2 obnoxious older sisters, her divorced parents, her niece, and her grandma. And so her grandma is a very rich woman, and on her 80th birthday, she has always thought that she was going to pass away because a psychic told her so, I believe. And so on her 80th birthday, she invites the whole family up to their isolated house in on an island, and unfortunately she does pass away that night, and she is very obviously murdered, and so the members of the family start dying off one by one. And there's also this other guy there named Connor, and he was like a friend of the family. He was not interesting. It does not matter. The concept in itself was super interesting. I mean, it's nothing new, but it's a trope that I particularly really enjoy. A murder mystery where it's like a remote setting and they're dying one by one and you have to figure out who's doing the murdering. I enjoyed it like all the way through till the reveal. Now, there are 2 reveals you can say, like, and I guessed who did it. Unfortunately, I did. I don't think it was very well done, in my opinion. I think that if you really think about it, you can guess who did it. So it was not surprising. But the other reveal came so out of left field, and it made so little sense that I don't know how people are eating it up, because I did not get it. I'm sorry, but it made no sense. Either other people have 1,000 more brain cells than me, and they got it, and it made sense, and they enjoyed it, or I don't know. I hated it. I feel vindicated because Tara just finished it and she also didn't like the ending, so I feel a little vindicated in that. But I also see a lot of people eating this book up and I truly don't understand. But anyway, the prompt, Most unforgettable reading experience because I listened to this on audiobook in one go. So I was taking a bus and it was like a 5-hour bus, and so I just listened to all of it throughout my ride on the bus. And so it was like unforgettable because I just binged the whole book because I was so interested in it. But unfortunately, it really let me down. I hated that reveal. Oh my god. If you have read it, let me know what you thought, because it was definitely something. Let's just say that. Moving on, it feels right to talk about another mystery that I was really excited about and that ultimately kind of disappointed me, and that was Dialogue for Aunties. This is a cozy mystery that has been hyped to the max, and it's about our main character whose name Maddie, I think, and she accidentally kills off her date. So she's on a date with this guy and she accidentally kills him because he was coming on to her and was about to maybe assault her, and so she accidentally kills him. And she talks to her aunties in order to help her with the body, with what to do, and they are all in the wedding industry. And so one of her aunties is a baker, and she has a really big fridge for wedding cakes, and they put the body in there. But guess what? The next day, instead of a wedding cake, the body gets shipped and they all have to go to this island where the very, very big famous wedding is happening in order to protect the body and not let anyone see the damn body, right? It was a very interesting concept. I was really, really enjoying it up to the halfway point, I think. I liked the aunties' relationships between them. I liked the relationships with Maddie. I liked the protectiveness that they had over her and their willingness to help her. But it lost me. That was something that happened a lot this month. A lot of the books that I read were mysteries, and they lost me just towards the end. They did not hold my attention. And this was one of them. It got a little bit too crazy. I didn't like the way everything was resolved. And also another weird thing that I've seen pointed out a lot in Goodreads reviews is that Maddie has this ex-boyfriend named Nathan who she dated for 3 years. And the reason why they broke up, I'm not gonna say it's stupid, but it was kind of dumb on her part to do so, and they haven't seen each other since. But obviously he's at the wedding, he's a manager there. And so a lot of Maddie's point of views were like, I am so in love with this man. Look how gorgeous Nathan is. I've never forgotten him. He's the love of my life. And oh look, there's a dead body next to me. And it just kind of switched around from those two perspectives in some very inconvenient times. And it got a little bit too repetitive at times. And like I mentioned, I didn't like the resolution. You know it's gonna end well, that's why it's a cozy mystery, but I didn't like the way it wrapped up. I didn't care for it. And so I'm not gonna be reading the sequel because that has some terrible reviews. And if I already was kind of feeling meh about this one towards the end, I am not gonna put myself through the sequel. So there's another 3-star read for you. Now let's switch it up to talk about one of the books that wasn't a mystery, and that was The Pull of the Stars by Emma Donoghue. Now, The Pull of the Stars is a historical fiction set in Dublin during the Spanish flu in the beginning of the 20th century, and it's about our main character. I don't remember her name, and she is a nurse, particularly of pregnant women that are infected with the flu. And so this was a heavy book. I was expecting a little bit more of a literary fiction, but no, it was like, here's everything that happens to women when they are giving birth while sick. And it was very sad. Sometimes I thought it was a bit too sad. You know, those like historical fiction books are just too sad, and it feels like they're just dumping all of this trauma on you, and it's like, okay, what am I supposed to do with this? That's kind of how I felt for some of this book. It was just a little bit too much sometimes. But what did I really enjoy about this book? I enjoyed the writing. I'll be definitely reading more from this author. I enjoyed the setting. It was very vivid. And I just enjoyed learning about this time period and such a difficult time period that it was, especially for women, especially for pregnant women. It spoke a lot about the violence against women, the sexual violence against women, not in a graphic way, but just in a how did they end up in this situation kind of way. And the depictions of the effects that war has, because they are during a war, the flu is infecting all of the people. It was just something that was really, really dark, but ultimately I just enjoyed learning about how the procedures went when women were pregnant during this time. But yeah, it was just a little bit too sad. You can imagine the things that happened during the births and after the births. And what I didn't like about this book, also the ending. Listen, it was too rushed. This book was under 300 pages. There was a romance that, although I kind of liked the romance, it just came out of nowhere. It developed out of nowhere. And the ending, it was just rushed. I was just like page after page, and I was like, didn't this just happen? How are we already here? So it was very rushed. I didn't really care for the ending because I wished it was a little bit more thought out or drawn out. It was a little bit, it was like the author was in a rush to finish the book, and she was like, okay, well, I'm just going to write whatever it is. So I didn't particularly like that, but it's a book that stayed with me, and that it's a book that I think about a lot. And when I think a lot about a book, I always end up like bumping up the rating, because if I'm thinking about it, it's because it meant something. So it's 3.5, not a 3, but also not great. Next up, let's talk about Elatsoe by Darcy Littlebadger, another book that I gave 3.5 stars. This book is about our main character, Elatsoe, and she can raise the ghosts of dead animals. And she belongs to a tribe, Lipan Apache. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. So I really enjoy learning about her culture because the author is from this tribe as well, and so all the culture is very realistic, and I loved learning about how things work, what they think, what certain cultural manifestations are. I really enjoyed that. The writing was also great. It read a lot like a younger YA, so I wasn't particularly a fan of that. But the mystery in itself was fun. Her cousin is unfortunately murdered, and she has to find out how it happened and who did it. And so the mystery of learning about who did it and why and how was quite an interesting road. It was a very great way to solve it. When the resolution or when the reveal came, I was like, this is very satisfying. But the ending got a little bit crazy. Towards the end, there were a lot of new character introductions, and the action just became a little bit hard to follow, in my opinion. I think it was a little bit too fast-paced. There was too much happening, way too many characters involved, and it just kind of lost its steam. But it's also on me. It's also on me because I took way too long to read this book. I had like 50 pages left, and I left for vacation, and this book stayed, and so I only ended up reading it a few weeks after. And so it kind of had already lost its steam, and so it just felt like it was very drawn out. But I know it's also on me, but I can't give it a higher rating than 3.5 because the ending got a little bit hard to follow, and it did not live up to how it started. But ultimately, I do recommend it. I think that is also a little bit on me for taking so long to read it. So I would still highly recommend it, and it's a great book, and I would read more from this author. Okay, now let's talk about my least favorite read of the month so we can move on to my favorite read of the month. My least favorite book of the month was Confessions by Kane Minato. This was a thriller book, a Japanese thriller that is very, very hyped up. It's been in a lot of book clubs this year, and I was really excited to get to it. I saw it at the library. I was very excited to pick it up, and then when I did, womp womp, I gave this book 2 stars. It started off very strong. It's about a teacher. I don't remember anyone's names. I'm really struggling lately with characters' names. I don't remember anything. But a teacher whose young toddler, is killed. It seems like an accident because she's found drowned in the school's like public pool, but the teacher knows that 2 of her students murdered the daughter, and her plan is to take revenge on them, and it's this very long and drawn out revenge on them. And it started off very, very interesting. Like, the first chapter is written in second person POV, and so it was very interesting because you just feel like she's talking to you, and so it's very creepy. But it ended up getting very repetitive because each chapter, it was from a different character's perspectives about the event that had happened. And so by the third or fourth perspective, you're just really done with reading the same story with just little different reveals. But it was just very repetitive. It got a little bit too repetitive for me. And also, I thought there was some problematic aspects. There's some talks about HIV positive people, and I don't feel like the representation is good. I can't really say that with 100% sure, but it left like a icky taste in my mouth. Okay, I didn't care for it. I didn't think it was good representation. Overall, it was boring, it was repetitive, and the ending, I was expecting like this big drawn out revenge. I was expecting something that I didn't get. I got what I didn't want it. 2 stars. I don't really recommend it. I think there are much better thrillers out there with revenge as a plot. This one was not very well done in my opinion, and it was also kind of problematic. Oh my god, I'm filming this video and I just got the news that the queen has died. Rest in peace, you were a baddie. Okay, moving on. The last book that I want to talk about is my favorite book of the month, and it was the last book that I read in August, so it kind of saved the month for me, and that is Optic Nerve by Maria Gainza. I don't know. She's an Argentinian author, and this book is about, for the longest time I thought it was like a biography, kind of. I thought it was about her, but it's not about the author. And so we have this narrator that speaks in first person, and you never really know who she is, not in terms of names or anything. And it's about her, and it's written in little vignettes about life events, people that she knew, things that have happened to her and to people around her, intertwined with stories about painters, artists, and just ultimately art. It was a very interesting format. It never got tiring because neither were the stories about the narrator too drawn out that you were like, okay, I'm tired of this. Neither were the stories about the painters drawn out. So it was a very interesting and balanced mix between fiction and fact, because the stories about the painters and the artists are true, and I feel like I learned a lot about South American artists, about not just South American artists, but just artists overall and art. And I love when I learn things. I love learning things, okay? And so it was very interesting, and also the little vignettes about this narrator, about her, were interesting. I still think a lot about this book, and like I said, when I think about a book a lot, it means a lot to me. I do recommend it. If you find the concept interesting, if you find the formatting interesting, I definitely recommend it. The writing was great. The settings were very vivid, and if you wanted to learn more about certain artists or art in general, I highly recommend this book. Okay, so that was it for my August wrap-up. Like I mentioned, August was not a good reading month for me, but we move forward. We move on to better things, and I'm doing that. I'm moving on to better things. There are some books I still recommend, like I mentioned, The Pool of the Stars, Optic Nerve, Elatsoe. Those are all books that I do recommend that you check out, and I think that people will enjoy. Maybe they just weren't for me, some of them. As always, if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more bookish content, and I'll see you in my next video. I hope you have a nice day, and always remember that life is worth reading.